Gloom and doom, gloom for a few days in parts of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. Yeah, exactly. And we've also got a little bit of severe weather risk up in parts of the northern plains from Minnesota down into Northwest Texas, and some nice weather around in some places. We'll talk about that in the tropics and a little bit of long range. That's what we do here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. If you shop on Amazon, use our referral link at the top of the chat board or on the description of this podcast. You get your stuff. Amazon will throw us back a little bit of coin, and we appreciate your support very much. So here we are. It's been a long time. It was actually the streak was 11 days, Joe. That's a pretty unusual streak in particular, and especially because a lot of those days were cloud free from start to finish.
Yeah, now we're going to deal with the cloud cover, and quite frankly, looking at the pattern, I did go for precipitation in my Hudson Valley Facebook forecast tonight, but I only mentioned it for places like a spot shower or a spritz or a sprinkle down toward the Westchester Bronx border. And tomorrow, basically, I think it's just going to be cloudy. I don't see very much in the way of any precipitation look at all. It may be until tomorrow night, after midnight, that we'll begin to get into some light precip, but really, even into Friday. Friday, maybe some precip around, especially in the afternoon. I mean, it's going to look kind of gloomy out there, the gloomy, doomy type that you're alluding to, but I don't really think we're going to see all that much in the rain bucket before this week is finally over.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Now, there are going to be probably a few places where there'll be some exceptions, maybe in southeastern New England, maybe touching eastern Long Island and coastal southern New Jersey, and perhaps a few other points west and south of there. But yeah, this is more real. This is really more about onshore flow and clouds, and the precipitation, as you said, for many people here through Saturday, because I think we're going to probably have to fight this through Saturday in terms of the cloud cover, is probably not going to be that much. And certainly, even in areas that get a little bit more, we're not talking about flood watches or anything like that. The other thing is, I'm kind of leaning on the idea that maybe someday, if things move along, the key is going to be that coastal low's got to drop far enough south, and the high to the north's got to build far enough south. But I think there's a fair chance that we could see improvement for Sunday.
Actually, on Sunday, I went for I didn't even go for a blend of sun and clouds. I went for more clouds and sun. I think that'll be the day when we'll finally get some intervals of sun. It could be a very
Yeah.
cloudy, it could be a rather cloudy day on Saturday. I agree with you on that point.
Yeah, I'm not talking mostly sunny necessarily on Sunday, but probably clouds and sun. Maybe one of these deals where the further north you go, maybe you get more sun. The further south you go, you probably have more in a little cloud cover. And we've got the models doing their usual various dances of extremes. I mean, they all seem to be developing a tropical storm next week in the in the Caribbean, and strengthening it into a hurricane when it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. After that, yeah, well, first of all, that's got to happen first. But let's just put it on the table that we assume that something's going to happen there. Um, run per, each run is slingshotting, this in a different place. You had you have some of them slinging it up the east side of the Appalachians all the way up the coast into New England. I love the 12Z GFS because it goes to where the targets of the last few years have been Bermuda and Nova Scotia, and the way we'll show it on a little later, but the way it tracked it was just bizarre because it crosses Florida, goes in the eastern Gulf, crosses Florida straight east, then kind of stalls off the southeast coast for a while. Almost looks like it's being loaded into a slingshot, and then it slings and goes north, accelerating northeast into a super deep trough, right into western parts of Nova Scotia, as a probably a Cat 2 or a Cat 3. I mean, who knows? But uh, you're going to see, and then of course the next run it's got it at Louisiana. So it's just it's who knows at this point. Obviously, just got we got to wait for something to form first, and then we'll take it from there.
Johnny Quest, thank you very much for hitting super chats. Joey says he had about 7 inches of rain from last
Yeah,
night into today.
yeah, a lot of spots down across Virginia and North Carolina. Of course, in eastern North Carolina, some places getting up to a foot and a half of rain in coastal North Carolina from what was a potential tropical cyclone and didn't live up to the potential of becoming a tropical cyclone from the standpoint of wind, but certainly from the standpoint of rain, it did do a number. And if you're wondering why that rain area didn't come up the coast and bring heavy rain all the way up, that the support in the upper atmosphere was just not there for that to happen.
And without any upper support, you're not going to get very much action. But Joe, again, it's been a long stretch of dry weather here in the Northeast, at least in the immediate tri-state metropolitan area. And the only thing that's changed now, as we just noted at the start of the show, is the fact that we had a rather cloud-filled sky today, probably the cloudiest day we've had for a long time. And the clouds will hang in, as I said, right on through into the start of the weekend, and maybe begrudgingly give way to a bit of sunshine by Sunday. But Bill Corbell, our good friend for many years at News 12 Long Island, he would have a term for weather like what we're about to experience: indifferent. The weather is just indifferent, just doesn't care. I mean, it's cloudy, there may be some spotty precipitation, but really nothing really to write home about.
Uh, yeah, exactly. So just answering Johnny Quest here about the fact that because he's up at 3,000 feet in the mountains of northwestern Virginia, yeah, they had an east wind, and that was really another thing that helped the cause with rainfall going inland into North Carolina and up into uh, interior Virginia was the fact that you had the east wind, and those mountains, you get that lift, the orographic lift, and it just pumps out water. That's just a recipe for. I see it here a lot with any kind of northeast wind because of where I'm situated with respect to some of the mountains. But then I could go to another side of town and it's bone dry.
Yeah, well, maybe the other side of town was in the rain shadow, right?
Correct. And
You
there's
got
a lot of that here. There's a lot of these local, uh, I get it, but depending on the wind direction, there's a lot of these shadows that show up at various times. It's very
right.
interesting microclimate here.
Yeah.
And so I've got a handle on it, but there are still some things about it that I haven't quite figured out yet. One of these, I'm waiting to see if I get into a situation in the wintertime with a northeast wind and cold air, because I haven't had that yet, really.
Yeah, I mean, you've had. I mean, when you moved down there 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I said, "Well, what was Joe thinking? He's going to have all that heat and humidity in the summer, and all kinds of." And you've been living the lap of luxury in terms of weather. I think. I mean,
Yeah, I mean this is the first summer. I mean the first this was my fourth summer here, and and the first three summers I was here, I mean, a couple of them we didn't even get to 90 degrees where I am, and this year I think I counted 13 days that I got above 90, and the highest temperature on one day it got to 96 at my house. But that's been it. And it gets cold here in the wintertime. I can attest to that. Been below zero three times since I've been here. Just, I think, three more times than you have.
Absolutely. Well, you got the plunge of cold air coming straight down out of Canada at you. By the time it gets to me, it's modified to a degree. So there you go.
Would you like to do the radars tonight, please?
I will certainly do that. I
All
will
right,
be.
so you set it up, and in the meantime, I'll we'll do the watches and warnings map, which there really isn't much in the way of watches and warnings. We've got various coastal flood advisories up for parts of southern New England and Long Island, down along the New Jersey shore into Delaware. and even on the west side of the Delmarva Peninsula and into Chesapeake Bay, because of the full moon we've had and this uh, onshore flow that we've been in for quite a while, and we're going to continue to be in probably right through the weekend and into next week. Much of the country really is not seeing very much adverse weather tonight. We've got high wind watches and wind advisories up for parts of the eastern half of Montana, and also for a few counties in northwestern South Dakota and southwestern North Dakota. A couple of flood watches in three counties in Northern California, up the San Fernando Valley, and that's it, really. Oh, I see a couple of counties in south central Colorado that have frost advisories up. So it's a relatively quiet night, and you can see in here in the east, we have a non-tropical low that is offshore, and the clouds from that have moved now northward up into northern New England. Uh, it's hard to see the low clouds here on this particular satellite loop. There were also even some breaks of sun in parts of southern New York today. There's a sort of little separation there of cloud cover. But we're just going to kind of be sitting in this because this system's not going anywhere. And, as far as, well, I'll get to the radar in a second. And we also have some backside clouds rolling down the southern Appalachians into northern Georgia and into western South Carolina and also in parts of eastern Tennessee. Then we have this rotation into North Dakota and the arm that's running out ahead of it. You see this sort of narrow line of bright white clouds starting to show up. So that could be the beginnings of some showers and thunderstorms, and it's all part of a deep trough that's in the western part of the United States. You see moisture moving down along the coast of California and then running from California northeastward up into Montana and beyond. But with the way things are, that system in the west is not coming to the east. That's going right up into central Canada, and that will be it. And you can see the wide shot on the radar. We do have some spotty precipitation in parts of the northeast and mid-Atlantic states. It's nothing to write home about in terms of anything that's causing some problems, maybe a few heavier downpours in Virginia. But, Joe Rayo's got the radars loaded up, so we let him tell you about it.
Well, for the most part, Joe, from the mid Atlantic states on down into the southeastern U.S., the remnants of that tropical low pressure system and whatever disturbance happens to be right along the coast really hasn't provided, at least as of this point in time today, all that much in the way of heavy duty rains. Now, what we're looking at right now is Washington, D.C., Sterling, Virginia, and you see that there are showers across portions of central Maryland and down into the northern sections of Virginia. Some of them are a bit on the moderate to heavy side. You have to go all the way down toward Richmond for that, and maybe toward Norfolk, Virginia. But for the most part, not a whole heck of a lot of heavy duty activity that is in evidence. If we continue southward, let's go down to Raleigh, Durham, in North Carolina, Clayton, North Carolina. You can see the showers over central and southern Virginia. Not all that much in North Carolina. You can see that the ground clutter is kind of pulsating around here, but not indicating all that much. You have to go actually south down towards South Carolina, crossing over into the southern border of North Carolina to see this band of moderate to possibly heavy activity. There could even be some thunder and lightning with this particular system. So if we go further south down toward, let's say, we can go to Wilmington, North Carolina, and you can see that, again, while the precipitation is just light and spotty over North Carolina, here's that area I just pointed out in South Carolina, in eastern South Carolina, crossing over into the southernmost part of North Carolina. Again, some of this could be convective with some localized showers and maybe a thunderstorm or two. Going still further south, let's go now. Well, that one is not available in southern Georgia, but we can try Jacksonville, Florida. And you can see this is pretty typical for this time of the year. Most of Florida not seeing much of anything, but there are scattered showers and also some locally strong thunderstorms. Here's one that is moving southward, right down the coastline. So that is something of interest, I know. But again, for much of Florida, not really seeing all that much. The precipitation rather light and rather spotty. Here is Tampa Bay, Ruskin, Florida. And again, not all that much to show you. This is the area that we were watching a few moments ago, located along the Space Coast, just to the north of Cape Canaveral. You can see that area of orange and deep shades of red. So almost certainly thunder and lightning associated with that. But again, most of the Sunshine State was, at least to some degree, out in some sunshine today. Let me show you the one spot that really was active in terms of weather. Well, I didn't want that to happen. That's Glasgow, Montana. And it seems like it's right in the middle of this area of low pressure. Look how everything is rotating around this one spot, which apparently is right over Glasgow. To the east, you could see this area of rain that seems to be tracking right up along the Montana, North Dakota border and on up toward southern Canada. I think that's Manitoba. And meanwhile, on the other side, the northerly airflow, the showers are moving from north to south. And again, apparently they're rotating right around that area in Glasgow. If we take another different perspective, look here. Let's see what else we can show you. This is Great Falls, Montana. And Great Falls, everywhere to the east of Great Falls apparently is getting some shower or rain activity, but places to the west of Great Falls pretty much are dry with not much of any precipitation falling. We could also go to, let's try in Wyoming. This is Riverton, Wyoming, in the northern part of the state. And you can see again, there's some organized shower activity. You can see how as the sweep or as the loop progresses, these showers tend to multiply some. And again, it doesn't look like anything severe or heavy, but again, you can see that activity again increasing as we progress through the course of the day. Montana is 6 hours behind us. So what's your, excuse me,
3 hours.
3 hours. 3 hours.
No,
No,
they're
four,
mountain time, 2 hours.
4 hours behind us.
No,
So,
2 hours behind us.
no, it isn't. Wait a minute. Central time. Yeah, you're right. Central
Two
time and
hours.
2 hours. Very confused. We should be do things the way China does.
That's
China,
all one time zone. I know. Yeah. Uh,
but anyway, you can see that there is some action out in the Rockies and to the west of the Continental Divide, but really not anything terrible.
go to Reno.
I'd love to go to Reno. I don't have the money, but I can do it. Well, let's see. This is Elko, Nevada.
Okay. You want to see more of California, whatever radar shots. So it's mostly over and west of Reno.
Las
There's a lot of,
Vegas.
yeah, you got to go near. There's no radar near Reno?
Here's Reno.
Oh, there you go.
There you go, right there.
And, 'cause we don't, we like to talk, we should talk about California, what we do when there's stuff going on. And, yeah, you got, there looks like some pretty hefty showers there in western Nevada near Reno and on the California side. That's right. That goes into those counties, those couple of counties in Northern California where they have flood watches up. So thank you for taking us all over the United States, Mr. Rayo. It's most appreciated.
Lovely, lovely.
And here's the full view from coast to coast and from border to border on the radar. The Storm Prediction Center has a very narrow slight risk area in eastern South Dakota, southwest Minnesota, extreme northwest Iowa, and extreme northeast Nebraska. And then this marginal risk, almost like a very thin finger that runs from northern, eastern North Dakota and western Minnesota down through eastern Nebraska, central Kansas, western Oklahoma, and into a small portion of northwest Texas. We do not have severe thunderstorm watches up. And in fact, the SPC just issued a mesoscale discussion for areas Okay, I'm trying to, the way the map looks in the color, I'm trying to figure out. So that's Minot. So this is North Dakota, right near the Canadian border, and you can see western Minnesota. So they've highlighted this area as isolated severe risk possible during the next few hours, but severe thunderstorms are unlikely. Now, tomorrow, we've got a slight risk, and that also comes with a 2 to 5% tornado risk from northeast Kansas northward through northwest Missouri, Iowa, eastern Minnesota, and western Wisconsin. Then you see the 5% area up in northwest Wisconsin and in eastern Minnesota. And that's in an area of slight risk, the marginal risk going down into Oklahoma. We've got some general thunderstorm risk in the Carolinas. We've got some general thunderstorm risk in central and south Florida, and some general thunderstorm risk in parts of from the coast of California between San Francisco and LA, and then going inland and into the state of Nevada. And then as we head on to day three, no severe weather, just areas of general thunderstorms from place to place. However, from Maine, except for southern Georgia and a small portion of South Carolina and Florida, up and down the eastern seaboard and across the Gulf states, Joe, no thunderstorms are expected. So that's another thing with this sort of gloom and doom. It's really more about clouds and not about heavy rain or anything like that. It's just, we mentioned this last night. You get an east wind, uh, most of the time, unless you've got some kind of shortwave involved, which in this case you really don't have much of anything. Uh, Shortwave wise, it's not convective. So it's hard to get heavy rains from something that's not convective. Not impossible, but it's just not the case this time around.
Right. The air is, I mean, like, for example, what we're going to see over the next few days, northeast, east northeast, or even north northeasterly winds, that is right off the water, and that makes the atmosphere much too stable to support very much of any convective activity. Not to say that there can't be any convective activity. You get enough lift somewhere, and certainly you could get some rumbles of thunder or a flash or two of lightning, but this simply is not the environment for that type of activity right now here in our part of the country.
Yes, lift is very important. Support can be beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, here's um, here's our 7-day rainfall forecast from WPC, and they do have the 1.5 to 2 inch area for southeastern New England, and just about touching easternmost Long Island. But it's a very sharp cutoff from an inch of rain to nothing, or little or nothing, and we're talking about hundredths of an inch in upstate New York and in New Jersey, a little bit more, quarter of an inch along the coast. Again, this is 7-day rainfalls here, not for just tonight or tomorrow, but much of the East Coast and much of the Gulf states pretty much on the dry side. Southern Florida active with several inches there, active across the Central Plains, and then northeast into the Western Lakes. You have this fairly large area of an inch and a half to as much as 3 inches, and much of the West is quiet, save for that area in Northern California, in Northern California, or actually in Central California, in the eastern portion of Central California, and into Western Nevada around Reno and Point South, where you've got so a quarter to a half inch amounts. And in those areas, some of those areas, that's actually enough to cause some flooding. So let's at least look at what's going on in the east, and then I'll widen out. It's a fairly straightforward situation here. You've got a low east of Delmarva and south of Montauk that's going to spin up toward Cape Cod and lift a steadier rain there tonight into tomorrow, and then it just kind of goes out to the east. The low center itself just lingers offshore, and then and this now we're into Saturday. And if you believe the GFS show at 18Z, uh, it argues for no rain at all for much of the area, just clouds. And will take us into Saturday when we do have some showers that pop up in central Pennsylvania that move southeastward into eastern Virginia. But this low is far enough east and then starts dropping southward during the day Sunday. So I think, again, you start to see that high come down from northeastern Canada into New Brunswick and Maine. And so that might be enough to cause some improvement for Sunday, maybe decreasing clouds and increasing sun from south to north. I'm sorry, from north to south, with more sun to the north and less to the south. And that low, by the way, drops all the way down south of Bermuda. So we still got onshore flow early next week, but no real issues, at least through Tuesday. So now I'm going to just widen out and, let's go to the Western Atlantic view. And even before we do that, I'm going to, by the way, these are some of the local rainfall amounts through Saturday evening in southeastern New England, some 2.5 to almost 3 inch amounts there. But you can see how quickly those numbers drop. You get into um, Connecticut, you're talking about a quarter of an inch. Uh, gives 1.65 inches for Montauk and 0.91 for West Hampton, but Islip only gets 0.32, and New York City only gets 0.10. And it's mostly dry up the Hudson Valley with a few hundredths, picks up a bit down in New Jersey. And, that kind of makes sense given what we're seeing in this overall pattern. Now, let's see what the Hurricane Center is doing. I suspect they're not really changing very much here. So here's the 7-day outlook. So we have Gordon's remnants, still you know, the remnants and a bit of an open trough there. A 50% chance that this could regenerate into a tropical storm, in which case it would keep the same name, but it's just an ocean event and not of concern. And, as I probably thought they would do this, but they went from now a 20% chance in 7 days, Joe, to 30%. And they're talking about not much happening over the weekend, but some slow development is possible through the middle of next week. So it might be more than just slow development. And here's the latest GFS on this, and I'll just back it up. This is coming from a gyre of moisture over Central America. And as the gyre rotates, the disturbance sort of gets kicked out from Honduras and moves out into the open waters of the Gulf of the Caribbean, and this is Sunday night. So it's 5 days from Thursday, Friday, 4 days from now. And the models, all of the models start to develop this, and this is the GFS's latest picture of developing a hurricane in the Yucatan Channel and making it a Category 4 and bringing it up into Louisiana. Okay, well, that's the 18th zone. By the way, it gets up into central Louisiana only to drop southward back into the Gulf of Mexico, which makes total sense to me. But, it loves to do that. And then also, by the way, it should be noted that there is another hurricane here that the model's picking up on coming out of the major. Of course, it would be the case, Joe, because I said yesterday and the day before that development in the major development region is probably a dead issue. So that's only a given that you're going to start seeing storms coming from the MDR. But it does have some kind of hurricane north of the Leeward Islands and, moving northwest and northward by the time we get to the end of the forecast period. So who cares about that? But I just want to just go to a couple of things here on the upper air that I think are going to be important. And with regards to the system in the Caribbean, and I'm going to go back to the 12Z run, which really and I looked at this and I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive. The GFS wants to drop a major trough into the eastern part of the United States. Well, this is the one where it slingshots it. Okay. So what the GFS does is it's got this lead trough in the Great Lakes. You see the tropical system in the eastern Gulf of Mexico gets sort of drawn northward, but that first trough doesn't really pick it up. Instead, it causes the system to take a sharp right turn across northern Florida, come out the other side, and now it's sitting off the southeast coast. And we're talking a week from Sunday here. And then all of a sudden, there's this powerhouse animal trough that drops into the east and just slingshots this northeastward right into Nova Scotia. And by the way, the thing that struck me with this too was the fact that and we're talking October 1st. And not only is there blue snow there in Canada, okay, north of Toronto, but Joe, the 540 thickness line gets all the way down to New York City and Washington, D.C. with that deep trough. I
And
mean, it's probably, I mean, the GFS loves to overdo these eastern systems like this. I mean, so I have to suspect that that is indeed the case.
for those
And
uninitiated, the 540 thickness line is used on the average in the wintertime to position the rain snow line. It's it's a thermal ribbon at 500 millibars, 18,000 feet up, that indicates or suggests that it could, over locations that are either under it or north of it, if there's any precipitation, cold enough for snow. And here Joe is just mentioning that that line, that particular 540 line, is going to be past us, south of us.
just to about New York City to about Washington, just northwest of Washington, D.C.
This is by when now? This weekend or
This would be, no, this is the end of next week.
end of next week?
Right. And also behind it, I mean, in terms of the air here, we're talking, this is 6, 12, 18. So, I mean, we're talking about temperatures in the 40s. And so it's a fairly impressive shot of chilly air that's coming down. If that's the case. The bottom line, though, obviously these fantasy runs take you in all sorts of different directions. But the bottom line is that much of this really is going to depend on what's going on in Canada, because that we're getting out of this blocking pattern that we've been in, and it's being replaced by more of a westerly flow, a northwest flow. There's also a big ridge that's building up the west coast, so that's going to be very important. So the key to whatever's going to happen with any kind of system that develops in the Caribbean is going to be dependent on how the models handle these short waves that are going to be dropping southeastward out of Canada and into the eastern part of the United States. So ultimately, that's the game that we're going to be playing. And of course, at this early stage, every model's got a different idea of what's going on. And I just want to take a look at the icon, because the icon actually has been doing pretty well, for the most part, has done a fair job this tropical storm season. So I don't want to discount it. And at least when we go to the 12Z icon, which goes out far enough where we could see something, it's got it's got the low developing in the Northwest Caribbean, and it moves it over the northern part of the Yucatan Peninsula, and it's taking it out in the central Gulf of Mexico. So this would be next Wednesday. So this is a week from today, and it's already moving northward, and it looks like it's going to want to move northeastward because it is showing some kind of a trough from the Great Lakes down the lower Mississippi River Valley, and that the system responds to that trough. The 18Z GFS to me makes no sense. Okay. Um, and in a lot of ways, the 12Z didn't make much sense. So at least, but I think the takeaway at this point, Joe, is the fact that I think we're going to probably see a tropical storm develop early next week in the Northwest Caribbean, and it's probably going to have some ramifications for the Gulf Coast a week from now.
Well, if you've been keeping score, the first 19 days of September here in the media tri-state area has only seen count them, 2 days where we had significant or measurable precipitation. That was on September 2nd from some scattered showers and storms, and a more prolific or more robust punch of precip, about a half an inch worth, on September the 8th. All the other days that we have had, and a goodly number of them were bright and sunny, have been totally dry. And today was another example of a dry, albeit cloudier day. And I think, again, tomorrow, for the most part, save for maybe a few spots in and around the immediate New York City area that might just get a couple of light showers or sprinkles, it will again be mainly a dry day tomorrow. So what else can I tell you? It has been a dry month so far, this month of September. So maybe Mother Nature is holding back on things. Maybe toward the end of this month or the beginning of next month, she'll load up kind of a frontal zone, Joe, along the Atlantic seaboard and have one of those tropical systems latch onto it and come up the coast. And in one sweep, we can make up for lost time, but that's only
Yeah,
speculation.
I don't know that we want to do it with a tropical, necessarily want to do that with a tropical storm or a hurricane. I
Right,
mean, let's hope it doesn't happen that way. We'll take a cold front with some showers, but I don't know if we want to, full blown hurricane moving up the eastern seaboard in some fashion. Not saying that that's going to happen, but just be advised that you're going to be on roller coaster rides with the models for the next 5 days at the very least, and you know, take every run with a bit of, salt mine full of coarse kosher salt, because that's what I cook with, coarse kosher salt.
whatever.
So on that note, let's do a little bit of Briller Jeopardy, shall we?
Surely, and
Surely.
I believe I'm the one who. Would you get off
Yes.
the Mike Lawler? I got to tell you something. I
Who's
got
Mike Lawler?
Mike Lawler is running for political office in uh, in
Oh, he's running a commercial on our show?
he is.
Oh, well, don't tell him to get off right away.
I mean I tell you, but they're all over the place. These political ads right now, unbelievable.
Well, they do buy us a meal, a McDonald's meal every once in a while.
By the way, McDonald, did you know that today was National Hamburger Day?
It's funny you should say that because I went to, today was the monthly luncheon of the members of the Dog Park Society, the Blairsville Fang and Claw Society. So we all had lunch. Every month we go to a different place for lunch. So today we went to the Brasstown Resort here and Spa, which is a really nice place. I mean, it's a gorgeous place, for vacationing, and they got a golf course and horseback riding and all sorts of things. But they've got two very good restaurants there, and I have not had a hamburger. I got to say, first of all, I can't really remember the last time I had a hamburger, but it's got to be at least 6 or 7 months. It might even be over a year since I've had a hamburger. So I decided to get their their it's called the Brassy, which was it's a bacon cheeseburger with the onion rings and all all sorts of stuff on a brioche roll. They cooked it perfectly for me at medium rare. I got to tell you, the burger was insane. It was so good. I've done without for a while from the standpoint of having a hamburger, but I had one today and it was great. It really was. So Brassy, which is the pub that's in the resort, and then they also have this bigger restaurant there. Um, I raved about the burger, and I'm raving about it now. So if you're watching Death of Brassy, you made a great burger for me, and I appreciate it.
Well, if you had gone to McDonald's and
Which
used
I don't, but go on.
if you had gone to McDonald's and used the McDonald's app, you could have gotten a double cheeseburger today for 50 cents in honor of National Hamburger Day.
Um, yeah, well, there was no chance of me going. I can't eat. I just can't eat fast food. I can't.
All right, well,
It doesn't agree with me, Joe.
whatever.
It just doesn't. I can't do it. Well, I used to be able to, but it's been years since I've had fast food.
Well, I haven't been to McDonald's in a long time, but Renata said, "Well, how can we pass up on this deal? Not only did we get a hamburger or a double cheeseburger for 50 cents, but we also added on some medium fries. We had a shake.
Which they
So it was,
charge you $4 for.
well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
Well,
there.
the medium shake is 4.69.
Oh my God, that's
Large,
insane.
large shake is 4.99. I said, well, what's the big difference? 33 cents between medium and large. So we ended up getting a large shake and splitting it between us, and it was okay.
What flavor?
Chocolate.
Okay, good.
Chocolate. What a chunk of chocolate.
Yes. All right, come on, let's do Briller Jeopardy.
Well, here we go with Briller Jeopardy. Of the five actors we are going to mention here, what is their biggest box office hit? The biggest box office hit for these five actors, starting with Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson. Hmm. Well, he was the Joker in one of the Batman movies. I don't know what that was in terms of the box office draw. Um, so Ruben Fairchild says Batman. Carol DeCara says 1989. I don't even know if was that a movie? No
I don't.
idea. Um, Lou
I would.
Arizio, Lou Arizio says The Shining.
I would have. I've got the answer in front of me, but if you had asked me this question, I would have said the bucket list. I thought
Patrick
that.
Darcy says As Good as It Gets.
Yeah.
Rich Rothmansky says The Departed. Um, and Christina Pedia says One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Well, it turned out to be
Oh, it
Batman.
was Batman. Okay. Well, I said that from the beginning. You should ring the bell for me.
I will do that. Dun dun dun.
And for, and for everybody else that said Batman.
Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando, and this particular answer to me is strange.
Well, okay, so Marlon Brando, I mean, of course, he won his Oscar for The Godfather. Okay. He was also was it Jor-El, Superman's father in the first Superman movie?
Right. Right.
Okay. Um, I mean, The Godfather was the only movie I could think of that he did that would have been, that made, had a big box office draw. I mean, you know, is it a
Well, it's
movie?
strange. It's for me. This is strange.
Oh, I mean, is it Platoon?
No,
Okay,
I'm gonna tell it to you because
not
I don't.
not Platoon. Well, what was it? Oh my God, I can't believe I can't remember the title. It's like right in front of me, where he was only in a short. Martin Sheen is in it, and he was only in a short scene toward the end of the movie, and it had just like this really bizarre ending. I forgot the name. Apocalypse Now. Thank you, Rich Rothmansky.
Yeah. No, believe it or not, and again, this is I'm not sure whether or not Mr. Briller got this wrong or got confused or whatever, but he claims that Marlon Brando's biggest box office hit was Superman Returns, not Superman, not the first Superman, but Superman Returns.
I
Was he
didn't know
actually?
he. I don't know. Was he? I don't know that he was in that.
I don't know if he was in
I
that
know
either.
they pay. I know they were. I know they paid him like some obscene amount of money for the first but in the first Superman, like something like $1 million a day or something to be part of that movie. Um, so yeah, I didn't know that Superman. He was in Superman Returns, but he might have been. Craig Carlberg is disputing that as well. Um, Marlon Brando played Jor-El. Archive footage. Yeah, that makes sense. That they probably used archive footage in that movie, and maybe that movie grossed more, more than any other movie that he was in.
The irony of that is that it was a different Superman, right?
Yes.
That was not Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve.
No, it was somebody else.
Yeah,
All
that's.
right. Next.
How about Arnold Schwarzenegger? His
Oh,
box office hit.
no. Was it Die Hard?
No.
No. All right, come on, chat board. Help me with Arnold, Mr. Schwarzenegger. Terminator 2?
Terminator 2. Who got
Yeah.
that one?
Ruben Fairchild.
All right, Ruben. Here's the bell. Ding ding. All right, moving.
I'll ring the bell for him because otherwise he is going to get upset.
All right, Ruben. This is for you. Hooray!
Yeah,
Number four.
next. I don't
Number
know
four,
why I said Die Hard.
Meryl Streep.
Oh God. You know what, Joe? She's been in so many movies and she's gotten so many Academy Award nominations. I have no idea. Meryl Streep. Christina Pedia says Bridges in Madison County.
No.
Um, Carol DeCara says Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia. No. Oh, yes. Yes. It was Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia.
Right. Mamma Mia.
I
I don't know. I've seen a number of her pictures too. Probably the one that stands out in my mind more than any of the others was when she co-starred with Dustin Hoffman, who we mentioned last night in
What, in
Kramer.
Kramer versus Kramer? I watched that a couple of weeks ago.
That was a good movie. And number five, the last one for tonight, Mel Gibson.
Oh, it was maybe that's who I was thinking of. Was he in Die Hard?
Well, if he wasn't named as the top biggest box office hit.
Christina Pedia says Mad Max.
No,
Carol DeCara says Braveheart.
no. Craig Carlberg said he saw Kramer versus Kramer and it bored him to sleep.
Um,
I saw
let's
I saw Kramer versus Kramer on board a ship heading from Bermuda in 1980 with Mr. and Mrs. Isaac Asimov, believe it or not, or Dr. and Mrs. Isaac Asimov. And that was a memorable moment
That's
in my
pretty
life.
cool.
Yeah.
Maggie P says Lethal Weapon.
No,
Rich Rothmansky says Lethal Weapon 4.
Patrick
Um,
Darcy got it, though.
Signs?
Signs.
I have no idea. I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, neither did I, but that was his number one hit.
All
Biggest
right.
hit.
Well, are we done?
We are done. I just want to answer one question from Mr. Fairchild, who was asking about apparently Dr. Cohen, Judah Cohen, who was saying that he thinks this winter is going to be similar to the winter of 2020, 2021. And Reuben Fairchild was asking, how much did we get a lot of snow that winter? At Central Park, 38.6 inches, which let me tell you is a hell of a lot more than what they've had over the last two winters. So maybe, just maybe, this winter we will see a comeback of the white stuff.
Yeah, that was a fair winter. It happened in clusters. There was a lot of snow in December that year,
Yeah.
and it also got to. In fact, in that year, in December of 20, that was when it got to the 70s, Christmas Eve. It's also where they had half a foot of snow here in North Georgia, Christmas Eve night, and everybody woke up Christmas morning to at least half a foot of snow on the ground. And I didn't move. I moved here in January of 21, so I was not here for that. I was up in New York for the 74-degree Christmas Eve that we had. So there you have it.
I recall that was the Christmas Eve. That was we had like a 10.5 inch snowfall on the 15th or 16th of December.
Right, and it got washed away.
Yeah, we're going to get a white Christmas. And then all through the night on Christmas Eve, when we woke up on Christmas morning, there was nothing. So Merry Christmas to you.
Right. All right. That's it for tonight. So thanks everybody for being here. So we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time to wrap up the work week because we're going to be off Friday and Saturday. So be sure you don't miss us. So we'll see you tomorrow. Night, night.
Good night, folks.